Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to Baking with Ashley. This week we are going to be going over a mini churro recipe, and we're also going to be making a strawberry cake with a chantilly frosting. So this week I am going to kind of just be revisiting some of the things that we have gone over in the last couple of weeks. Last week, in case you missed it, we did a lemon cake and brownies. They were a huge hit in my house. I don't know about you guys, but they're very popular here. Also, this week I would like to give a big shout out to Paige. Happy birthday. Thank you for spending your birthday baking with me. I hope that you and your sister have fun doing this class. I know that you guys both wanted to do the churros and the strawberry cake. So thanks for watching, and I hope you have a very, very happy birthday. Okay, everybody, if you want to give Paige a shout out, a happy birthday in the comments, go ahead and do that. I know that there's a lot of people who are celebrating their birthdays right now in isolation or, in quarantine at home. And I know as soon as this is all over, you'll be able to throw a big birthday party, okay? And you'll be able to see your friends and do everything that you want. I know that my birthday is coming up too, so we can all kind of celebrate together, right? In a couple of weeks, maybe I'll make a birthday cake for myself. All right, so first things first, we are going to go ahead and do the strawberry cake just so that can bake in the oven while we are doing our mini churros on the stove. The biggest thing that you guys want to focus on this week for your churros is making sure that your oil is hot, okay? I'm going to upload all the recipes later on today as soon as my class is finished. But yeah, so the main thing when we're doing our churros later is having the oil be extremely hot. So you want it to be about 325 degrees, okay? So if you have a thermometer at home, you can use a candy thermometer. You can use, I think a meat thermometer would be fine as long as it goes up high enough, in the reading and everything. That is the main focus today. If you guys do not have your oil hot enough, your churros are not going to fry properly. It's the same thing that when you're making donuts, one of my favorite donuts is the apple fritter. And if you don't have your oil hot enough, or if you put in too many fritters into the oil, then it's going to cool the oil down and it's not going to cook all the way through. It's going to be kind of saturated with oil in the middle, and it's going to be really heavy, and that's not what we are going for. All right, so that is our main concern today, is we want to make sure that we are going over the steps and things that we've done over the last couple of weeks. So we're going to go ahead and start off with our cake. So I have all my dry ingredients measured out, the same as last week, okay? We're gonna do the same type of stuff that we were doing last week for the lemon cake. I have my dry ingredients in here. I've got all my wet ingredients over here. And I've got my strawberry jelly, because we're gonna go ahead and be doing a strawberry cake today. And then later on, we're gonna make our whipped cream. So I already pre-made my whipped cream. It's in the refrigerator. So let me grab that real quick. And I did a chocolate whipped cream, so chocolate chantilly cream. So it's pretty much the same type of process as making your normal chantilly cream. I just went ahead and added cocoa powder in there because I really like chocolate and strawberry mixed together. They're like two of my favorite flavors. I know that there's a lot of people out there who just like, traditional strawberry with a nice vanilla chantilly cream. That's absolutely fine as well. So whatever your preference is, make the cake the way that you want to make the cake, okay? These recipes can be customized to however you want them to be. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and look for my paddle real quick. So I got our paddle attachment. You guys remember this from last week. It's the same thing that we used last week. So I'm going to go ahead and take our dry ingredients. I'm going to throw it on the mixer. And I'm going to take our wet ingredients. And I'm just going to do the exact same thing that we've been doing all these weeks prior, just on low. Add part of your wet ingredients, okay? So while that little bit is mixing, just like last week, you don't want to add your wet ingredients too quickly, because if you add the wet ingredients too quickly, then we're going to run into having lumpy cake batter. If you remember from last week, we don't want lumpy cake batter, okay? So the main focus right here is making sure that everything is combining and mixing together and looking nice and smooth. So I added about probably a third of my wet ingredients, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape down the sides. And it's really thick right now, so you can tell that your cake batter is not quite finished yet because we still have a lot of wet ingredients. But it's looking really nice and smooth, and so that's kind of what we want to keep going with here. So I'm just about done adding the wet ingredients, so I'm going to go ahead and scrape it down one more time. And I'm making sure I'm getting right under the paddle, just like last week, remember? Because the dry ingredients like to hang out down there. And so you want to make sure that you really get underneath the paddle. Still looking nice and smooth, so that's good. And I'm just using my towel here to block any of the wet ingredients that are trying to pop out of the bowl right now. That's a nice little trick I learned in culinary school. If you guys know that your bowl is going to be extremely full, what you can do is you can take a towel, or you can also take saran wrap if you don't have one of the guards, and you can just saran wrap it or put a towel up, and that will keep all of your ingredients inside. You want to make sure you use a clean towel, or if you have the plastic wrap, that's what I prefer to use normally if I know that I'm going to be making big batches of things and stuff might be like popping out, whether it's flour, your wet ingredients, whatever. It just helps cut down on the amount of cleanup you have after. So you can see my bench over here is still nice and clean. And our cake batter is all done. And you can see how nice and smooth it looks. So I made a little bit extra cake batter this week because I'm actually going to be making a friend a birthday cake. So one of my husband's coworkers is going to come pick this up for his son, practicing social distancing, of course, on Thursday. All right, so I went ahead and I just scraped the sides of the bowl down again. And while I'm doing this, I'm going to go ahead and go turn on my oil for my churros so that I know that it's nice and hot. I'll also bring my digital thermometer over so that I can show you guys what my thermometer looks like. It's something that you can get off of Amazon. It wasn't too expensive. It's a good thermometer, so it'll last a long time. It's waterproof, which is something that if you're going to be doing a lot of you know, candy making or sugar work or frying things, or even if you're going to be making different types of meringues or meringue buttercreams or even macaroons, you need to boil sugar to a certain temperature. And so you want to make sure that you have a really accurate, a really good thermometer, okay? Your equipment that you're using for things like temperature taking, you know, for your oven or your fryer or whatever, you need to make sure they are calibrated and they're working really well. I can throw up some tips on my Facebook page later about how to calibrate different thermometers and stuff, so that if you guys have a thermometer at home and you're not sure of whether or not it's calibrated correctly, you can just go ahead and look on my Facebook and I'll give you kind of some steps that you can go through with your thermometer and make sure it's calibrated, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and turn on my oil just on medium so that it heats up, and the oven is preheated to 350 degrees for our cake, but we'll get back to our cake in a second. All right, so I went ahead and turned on our oil. Thanks for waiting. And here is my thermometer. All right, I went ahead and grabbed it off the top of the stove. You guys can see the brand. It's ThermPro brand. I just want to make sure everybody on every device can see. This is, you know, it's a pretty high quality thermometer. I think it cost me like 30 bucks, so it still wasn't like anything out of this world to pay for. It's a really neat and cool thermometer also. So the way that it turns on is you just pull up the probe, okay? And you can see that the light came on. And then just to turn it off, you just go like this, boop, and you turn it off, just like that, okay? So you just put the arm handle down. And that's that, all right? There's a lock feature on here. On the back, you can change it from Celsius to degrees. I know here stateside, a lot of us use degrees, but you know, over in Europe, they use Celsius. Also in Canada, I think almost everywhere, but here you use Celsius. So yeah, that's that. So that is my thermometer. I love using it. I just made macaroons yesterday, actually. If you guys follow me on social media, you guys would have saw that I was making macaroons yesterday. This is crucial when you're making Italian meringue, Italian method macaroons, okay? If your sugar is off by even a couple degrees, you might mess up your Italian meringue. I don't know if you've ever tried to make Italian meringue before and you've seen, you know, there's kind of lumps of sugar in your egg whites and it's not nice and smooth and fluffy like it's supposed to be. It was probably because your sugar was not the proper temperature. If you get that kind of grainy feeling, it probably wasn't the right temperature. So maybe, you know, in a couple weeks or next week or whenever, we can go over an Italian meringue buttercream or an Italian, you know, meringue cookies. They're fairly popular in Europe. Yeah, so anyway, so here is my cake batter. You can see it's nice and smooth, everyone. And I'm going to split the amount that I'm going to take out for my strawberry cake. The birthday cake I'm making on Thursday is vanilla, so I'm going to leave myself some vanilla batter. So I'm going to be making 2 6-inch cakes. And so I'm going to need 180 grams of my finished cake batter. All right, so I'm going to take my scale. And I'm going to put my bowl on top of my scale here. I grabbed another spatula because I'm going to need 2 spatulas right now. I'm going to throw in my strawberry jelly. It's a little bit difficult right now to get fresh fruit. Typically, I would just use fresh strawberries and make myself my own compote to add to my cake batter. But we're doing what we can in quarantine, right? So, let's see. I'm going to take 180 grams from the bowl here, and I'm just going to pour it directly into this bowl. And when I'm making cakes, I do small cake layers. I don't, a lot of people sometimes when they're making cakes, they fill the cake pan up to about 2/3 of the way up the side so they get a nice thick piece of cake. But if you're doing a layered cake, what I've come to find is it's much easier for me to do thin, even layers so that I don't have to slice the cake and then decorate it. It saves me time on decorating. It saves me time on, you know, having to let the cake cool before I can decorate it. One of the main things when you are working in high volume baking is you have to be efficient. Efficiency is, you know, I look back when I started baking school, I think it was like 7 years ago now. And when I first got into the kitchen, I was a disaster. I was all over here, all over here. You know, I thought I was doing well with my mise en place, but I look back now and I'm like, wow, I was like Hurricane Ashley back then, okay? The kitchen was a disaster. There's chocolate all over me. No matter whether I was working with chocolate or not, you always get chocolate on me. I know one of my really good friends from culinary school, Sarah, she had the same issue. Even if we were not working with chocolate, this girl had chocolate everywhere, okay? But me too. Same with red velvet cake batter. I know that that's a fairly popular thing here stateside. Red velvet, anytime that you're using it, you'll have it on your back somewhere, and you're just like, how did I even get red velvet there? Like, this is completely ridiculous. But it keeps the days easy, and it keeps them light, you know, even if you get something, you know, everywhere. All right, so I'm going to just mix the strawberry jelly with my cake batter. Move the scale. So I'm just mixing this in, and you can see it's getting nice and pink now. And this strawberry jelly is also going to add a layer of moisture to our cake. Because like we talked about last week, nobody likes a dry cake, right? And what else helps with keeping moisture in our baked goods? Gluten, right? Gluten is not always a bad guy. Gluten can be a good guy, time to time. Okay, and I'm sorry if you have a gluten allergy. I'm very sorry for you, but there are amazing one-to-one flours out there. I know I talked to you guys about it a couple weeks ago when we did our first class. The one-to-one flour is amazing, and it's like it works almost exactly the same as AP flour. You can barely tell the difference that there is no gluten in your baked good. All right. Okay, so my cake batter is all finished here. You can see it's a nice pale pink color now, nice and strawberry. How much strawberry jam? It was a 1/2 cup of strawberry jam. 1/2 cup of strawberry jam. And I'm just going to go ahead and split these two evenly into my cake pan now. So I got my scale again. Just your typical Cuisine Art scale, okay? It can go from grams to ounces to pounds. So I tare my scale. And I'm just going to do 2 even equal cake pans here, okay? So I'm going to do some into here. That looks like about half. So this one is 160 grams. Let's see how good I am at guesstimating. Let's see how close I am at eyeballing. Let's add this. And you want to make sure you get all of the batter out of the bowl, because what did we say a couple weeks ago? Anything left in the bowl is profit going down the drain, right? Or extra yummy goodie cake batter. All right, so this one was 165 and the other one was 160. So that wasn't too bad for eyeballing. All right. So I'm gonna go ahead and make sure these are nice and level. And I'm going to throw these into the oven. I'm gonna set my other cake batter off to the side for later. All right, I'm gonna put my whipped cream also back into the refrigerator so it doesn't get all runny. Okay, so next, while we're waiting on our oil, I'm actually gonna temperature the oil real quick. Okay, so my oil is at 240 degrees, so we need it to get up to 350 degrees, so that's going to take another, couple of minutes. While I'm waiting for the oil to heat up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to move all of my phones and my computer and everything over to where the stovetop, where I'm going to show you guys how to make the churro batter, okay? So give me just 1 second while we move. All right. Alright guys, so I have everybody kind of moved into a spot where you can see the stovetop. So what we're going to do right now is, it's a fairly simple recipe. It's 242 grams of water, which is 1 cup, 113 grams of butter, which is 4 ounces of butter. I have that in a saucepan right here. As you can see, I'm kind of holding it up. And then it is a dash of salt, literally just a teeny tiny bit of salt, okay? And then cinnamon, that is going to be for your cinnamon sugar, which we are going to use later, okay? That's what we're going to toss the churros in once we're all finished. All right, so what we're going to do is we are going to... Oh, and it's 174 grams of flour. Sorry, 1 1/4 cups of flour. Like I said, I'm going to upload the recipes as soon as I'm done with your guys' live class. My dog got out right before the class, so I was kind of running around trying to get her back in. We just rescued her on Saturday, so it was a little scary because she doesn't really know her surroundings yet. So, yeah, that's why I'm a little behind today. But... okay, so what we're going to do is, let's check the temperature of our oil. So it's at 277 degrees, so we still have a little bit of ways to go, but I'm going to go ahead and start boiling my water and my butter so that the butter has time to melt. Churros are a pretty simple thing to make. They have a fairly similar procedure to pâte à choux or eclair shells. I don't know if you guys have ever made eclair shells before, but they're sort of similar. So you boil a lot of your wet ingredients on the stove before you add your flour for pâte à choux. But the biggest difference between those two recipes is pâte à choux contains eggs. And this recipe, as you can notice, it doesn't have any eggs. It's just water, butter, salt, and flour, right? Pretty simple. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some cinnamon. I'm going to throw some extra cinnamon into my flour before we get started. So you can see me, I'm just pouring a bit in there. I really like cinnamon, especially on my churros, so I did a little bit extra. And I'm trying to read the comments as I'm watching. If you guys have any questions, just go ahead and put it into the comments. It doesn't look like anybody has any questions other than the strawberry jam, which was, I don't know if you heard me earlier, but it's a half a cup of strawberry jam for your cake if you're still working on your cake. So I'm checking my oil. So the oil's at 300 degrees now, and like I said, you want to make sure it's 350. Alright, so our butter is already almost melted, and I have the water and the butter just on medium heat also. Makes it easy. So what you guys need to do now is think about, what do you want to go over next week? Next week we can, I know that at the beginning of quarantine I was getting a lot of questions about whether or not we can make macaroons. We can absolutely do a macaroon class as soon as, you know, everybody has all the ingredients. I know almond flour is kind of a difficult thing to get unless you can order it off Amazon, but I know that their deliveries are a little bit behind. Tanya, are you looking for the ingredients for the churros or for the, oh, okay. The flour for the churros is 1 1/4 cups of flour. And then did you need the ingredients for the churros or did you need it for the strawberry cake? Which one are you working on now? All right, our water and our butter, they are melted and it's starting to get hot. So what we're doing right now for the churros is we want to make sure that it is a rolling boil. You want to make sure that your water and your butter are boiling fast, okay? Tanya, I'm going to go ahead and go over the churro recipe again for you right here. I think you're a little bit delayed, but you should catch up. So it is 1 cup of water, 4 ounces of butter, a dash of salt, cinnamon to the taste that you want it. I put extra cinnamon because I love cinnamon. And then it's 1 1/4 cups of flour. So fairly simple ingredients, just a couple in there for you. You're also going to want a pastry bag with a star tip. That's how we're going to pipe them into the oil so that you get that cool churro look, okay? So my water is starting to boil. You guys can kind of see the water and butter mixture is starting to boil now. And I'm going to check on our cakes since we're right here. They're baking away. They still have some time. Okay, so our water and our butter is a rolling boil now. I don't know if you guys can kind of see. You can see all of the bubbles. All right, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add my flour. And then I'm gonna turn this on a little bit less than medium. And I'm just gonna stir this until it becomes a nice dough. And you'll be able to see as the flour absorbs the water and the butter, it'll start to pull off the sides of the pot. But you want to make sure that all of your flour is all the way mixed in, okay? You don't want to see any lumps of flour because then you are going to have lumpy churros, and nobody wants a lumpy churro. Just like nobody wants a soggy bottom, nobody likes a lumpy churro, right? You want the churro to be nice and crisp and doughy. I remember some of the best churros that I've ever had in my entire life was in Europe. So I was working in Paris and it was Christmas time and they have all of these holiday vendors. And man, their churros were seriously so good. With a cup of vin chaud, amazing. Especially on a nice cold winter day, it's the perfect way to spend your holidays, in my opinion. All right, so you can see my batter. It's nice and congealed. It's all together, and it's pulling away from the bottom of the pan. It's not sticking, so you can kind of see as I move it around. You can turn your flame off here. I'm gonna let this batter cool for a quick second. All right, so we're at 340 degrees for our oil, so I turned it down a little bit. I'm gonna grab my pastry bag. After we let this sit for just a minute, because it's really hot. So something I want to point out right now is the dough is going to be hot, okay? So when you're putting it into your piping bag, be careful. And you can see I just went ahead and put my churro dough into my piping bag. You can see here. And it's fitted with a large star tip. You can see over here, see? All right. So I'm just gonna cut the excess plastic off of my piping bag so that I can get my churros out. And then I am going to set our batter off to the side for right now. All right, so our oil is hot enough now. So what I'm gonna do is you need a pair of scissors to cut your batter as it goes into the oil. And we're gonna do mini churros, so you're just gonna pipe a little bit and then slice it. All right? So you can see it's bubbling a little bit, and then cut it off into there. And you can make them whatever size that you guys want, okay? So I'm making just little itty bitty minis. And one of the things that you want to make sure that you're not doing right now is overloading the oil, okay? Because as you drop in your churros, the temperature of the oil is dropping. So you don't want to put too many, because then your oil is going to drop temperature too much and it's not going to cook your churros. All right? So one of the biggest things here, yes, the churro recipe is very simple and it has very simple ingredients, but you want to make sure that your oil is hot and it stays hot, okay? That's one of the biggest things right now. Like I said earlier when we first started the class, when you're doing any type of fried anything, you know, whether it's making french fries or tater tots or what have you, you want to make sure that your oil stays hot, okay? So you guys can see my little churros are cooking up. It's not going to take very long, so you'll notice at the beginning that they sit on the bottom of the oil. As they start to cook, they'll start to float on top, all right? So you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that well. I think you can see better overall. I think that's Instagram over there. You can see a little bit better, or Facebook maybe. You can see them floating around in the middle of the oil. So what I have over here is I have a plate with a paper towel just to get some of the excess oil off. So as soon as I take them out of the oil, I just set them on the paper towel, okay, to get a little bit of the excess oil off. So I'm going to go ahead and do 3 more. And you can do more than 3. I'm just doing 3 because it's easy for me to show you guys. But I wouldn't do maybe more than 6 for the size of pot that I'm using. And you can do them a little bit bigger, you can do them a little bit smaller if you want. Whatever size that you guys want them, you can do them. I'm going to go ahead and let these guys go. And I'm thinking that this is probably going to make about 2 dozen mini churros. So if you guys are looking to make more, or you want to make them for a party or something, when we're out of self-quarantine, you can double this recipe or triple it, whatever. I don't know how many friends you guys have. Make a million of them if you want. But yeah, they're super easy. They're super quick. They're super delicious, as you guys will see here in a little bit. So these guys are floating around. They're almost done. Oil's still hot, I can tell because it's bubbling. So I'm going to go ahead and throw in 3 more. And it's really easy. You guys can see. You just pipe it out and it falls right in. So I'm going to take out the 3 that I put in before those ones. I'm going to check our cake too because we have a cake in the oven. Don't forget, you don't want to set off the thermometer, the fire thing. Alright, so it's still not quite ready. Needs a couple more minutes. Check these guys in here. These ones are almost done, so I can go ahead and put in 3 more. Yolanda, I am using a large star tip. So the number 847. Alright, so I'm going to take out the ones that I put in before. Toss them on the paper towel. And it doesn't take these guys very long to cook. You know, when you use your little ladle to grab them out, you can feel that they are nice and crispy on the edges. How long can the cake batter be stored, Sarah? Is that what you mean, or the churro batter? Sorry, I'm trying to keep up with all the questions on all 3. Cake batter can be stored, you know, for up to a week in the refrigerator. The churro batter, though, I probably wouldn't use after maybe 2 days of sitting in the refrigerator. If you don't cook it in 2 days, then I would just toss it. That's why you want to make sure that you're making the amount of, you know, batter and doughs that you're going to be using. Because we want to try to cut down on waste, right? That's one thing that, working in the food industry, you become very aware of how much food gets wasted. And so something that I really try to focus on while I'm cooking is only making the amount that I need. So you guys can see, I'll show you one of my little churros. Nice and crispy. Show you guys one of my churros. Nice and crispy. Nice firm edges. As soon as we're done cooking all of these, we will take them over and toss them in cinnamon sugar. I'm almost done too, so you can see my bag, it's probably about half empty. So I'm just gonna do a couple more. I'm going to take out the ones that I had done before. All right. We can pipe 3 more into here. And you can totally see as you, I'm not sure if you guys fry that many things at home, but as soon as the dough hits the oil, it sinks directly to the bottom of the pan, okay? Hi, Claudia. Thanks for joining us today. I know that, you know, every single week we kind of talk about how we're all being affected by the quarantine. But I must say that Tuesdays are some of my favorite days because I get to spend them with you guys. And we get to go over fun new things that, you know, maybe you've never done before, things that I haven't done that much before. I think this is only like the 4th time I've ever made churros. So this is fun and exciting for me. Another cool thing that you guys can do is you can make a churro ice cream bowl. So I was doing this when I was at the farmers markets here in San Diego a couple years ago. I would flip a cupcake mold and I would pipe my churro batter on the bottom part of a cupcake mold, and then I would freeze it. I would freeze the batter before I fried it so that it would hold its shape. And then after frying it, you know, it would be the same exact size as like a bowl, you know, a small bowl. And so we were filling it, the churro bowl, with our homemade ice cream at the farmers markets. And man, let me tell you, it was very popular, a little messy, but really delicious. So if you guys want to be adventurous and you want to try that, I would highly suggest it. Claudia, I'm doing very well, thank you. How are you doing? All right, so I got a little bit of batter left, so I'm going to go ahead and toss them into my oil. All right. I'm going to check the little cakes again here in a second. I'm going to make a little larger churros too, and a couple little baby ones. We're almost done with our batter. So the cake probably needs about 2 more minutes. It's just a little bit moist on top. So we've timed this pretty well because I think just about when we're done with our churros, our cakes will be done as well. Make sure your churros aren't sticking together in the oil. They kind of like to congregate. So you just want to split them up and make sure they don't stick together because then they won't cook properly. They won't cook all the way. What are some of your guys' favorite foods? What are some of your guys' favorite fried foods? I love tater tots. I don't know about you guys, but I'm a huge fan of potatoes. Anybody? Favorite fried food? No? No, everybody's really good with their diets and they don't eat fried foods? Alright, so these guys are just about done cooking. I probably have enough batter for about 10 more churros, I would think. And as you guys have been watching me, you probably have noticed, because I've said a few times to use a pair of scissors to cut your batter into the hot oil. So this pair of scissors that I'm showing you right now are for the kitchen only. That's it. I have a pair of kitchen scissors because you might need to cut meat. You might need to do pastry stuff. One thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that you're cleaning and sanitizing your utensils after every use, okay? So say I use this pair of scissors to cut chicken. This should probably just stay a meat pair of scissors, alright? So that we can cut down on cross-contamination. I know that in the news right now, if you watch the news, you're hearing a lot about cross-contamination, you know, being sanitary, being clean. Something that I have to stress is if you're going to be working in the kitchen, you have to make sure that you are not cross-contaminating. Especially if you're working in a restaurant where they make, you know, lots of different meat dishes, or they make lots of different desserts. You have to make sure that all of the pastry equipment is just pastry equipment, so that you're not getting chicken stuff on your, you know, you don't want somebody to use your pastry spatula for their chicken salad, right? Because there's a possibility that you might cross-contaminate. So when you're working in a kitchen, you want to make sure you're keeping all of your stuff clean, sanitized. If you use a pair of scissors for, you know, baking like we're doing right now, keep that pair of scissors specifically for baking. And maybe get a different pair of scissors for doing, you know, arts and crafts. And then a different pair of scissors for doing your meat cutting, if you're cutting, you know, chicken or whatever you're doing. Hi Paige, happy birthday. I love tater tots too. I guess we're twins. We're both born in April and we both love tater tots. Alright, so I have one more churro left, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that in there. So we're all done with our churro batter. While that's cooking, I'm going to take out our cakes because they're all done. I went ahead and turned my oven off also because it's pretty hot in here. It's actually nice and warm outside today. Alright, so I'm just gonna make sure that the churros aren't sticking together in the oil. And while these ones are finishing up cooking, I am going to move you guys back to our bench where we can finish up and we can throw our churros and our cinnamon sugar. All right, so we're back over here. And you guys can see I took my cakes out of the oven. All right, they're nice and baked. Just a light brown color on the edge. So while the churros are finishing up, I'm going to go ahead and flip my cakes out of the pan. So while my cakes are cooling right now and I'm finishing up doing the churros, I'm going to let the cakes cool so that I can decorate it, and I'll go ahead and show you guys finished product later. I'm going to grab the rest of our churros and then we're going to toss them in our cinnamon sugar mix. So I just took some regular granulated sugar and I just added a bunch of cinnamon into it, just like as you would do for donuts or any other type of cinnamon sugar topping. Alright, so our churros are all done. And what I'm going to do next is we're going to take the ones that I didn't just take out of the oil because those are still pretty hot. And we are going to just grab your churro and throw it right into your cinnamon sugar mix. Okay, and then you're going to toss it. I'm going to grab a new plate too. So that we can put our completed churros on a nice clean plate. So you just toss your churros in the cinnamon sugar, and you can see it's nice and it's kind of sparkling in the light. You can see it's nice and sparkly in the light. Okay. And then you're all done. So that's going to be the final step for these churros, okay? So the next thing that we are going to do is we're going to make the strawberry or the whipped cream frosting for the strawberry cake, which is really simple. So I don't even really measure the ingredients. I kind of just eyeball based off of what, you know, how much I know I'm going to be needing. But that's a trick that you kind of get after doing so many cakes or cupcakes or, you know, cake fillings. You can kind of just eyeball it. So you can see my churros are nice and covered in cinnamon sugar. And you can, you know, drizzle these with chocolate. You could drizzle these with caramel. You could dip them in chocolate. You could dip them in raspberry sauce if you wanted. Strawberry sauce if you prefer strawberries. I like my churros with caramel, usually a little bit of salted caramel. That's one of my favorite things to use for a lot of my baking is homemade salted caramel. It's super easy to make and it always tastes so good. All right, so I'm gonna throw in the churros that I just took off the oven now that they're a little bit cooler. Toss them in the cinnamon sugar. You don't want to toss your churros in the cinnamon sugar when they're too hot, otherwise it's going to melt all of your sugar, okay? So that's something that you need to be aware of when you're tossing them, is you want them to be not all the way cold, but just warm enough that the sugar still sticks, okay, but it doesn't melt. My roommates are going to be really happy today. Get mini churros. Who wouldn't be happy with mini churros, right? What a way to spend your Tuesday. All right. So the churros are all done. And so what you can do next is get ready to make the frosting. All right. So I'll show you guys my finished churros. You guys can see my churros. I made a little tower of churros. Churro tower. Mmm. You can see they're nice and sparkly with all the sugar we just put on them. All right. Awesome. So what we're going to do next is, if you want to make the chantilly cream for your strawberry cake, you're just going to take heavy cream, your heavy whipping cream, and you're going to whip that with your sugar and your vanilla until you get stiff peaks. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and grab my chocolate, my heavy cream, and I'll show you guys what stiff peaks looks like, okay? So to make the chantilly cream, we're going to use the whip today. All right. So if you guys remember, we have just been using the paddle attachment up until now. So we're going to be using the wire whisk. And we're just going to turn our mixer on to medium. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just whisking the heavy cream and the cocoa powder together because I'm making a chocolate chantilly cream. And you're going to let that whisk until you get to stiff peaks. So this is important because there's soft peaks, medium peaks, and then stiff peaks. So typically when you're making a whipped cream or something that you want to be decorating with, you want it to be stiff peak. That's so that it holds its edges really nice. So if you're doing your, you know, you're doing rosettes, you want a really nice stiff peak on that, okay? So that it holds its shape when you're decorating. So while we're doing all this, our cakes are cooling. You don't want to decorate them too early because if they're still hot, then you're going to lose your whipped cream. All right, if you put your decorations on too quickly, your whole cake is going to melt, and we don't want that to happen, do we? So I turned the mixer up a little bit, and it's just about done. So while this is finishing up and the cake is cooling, I'm going to let you guys go. If you guys have any questions, just like every week, hit me up on social media, send me a message. You can go ahead and private message me. You can say it in the comments. I'm going to upload the recipes on my Facebook as soon as we're done here so that you guys, if you weren't baking with me right now, you guys can do these recipes later and we will, you know, go from there. I want to say a big thank you to you all for coming and watching, and I want to wish Paige a happy birthday again. Thank you for watching, and just let me know what you guys want to do next week, okay? Thank you so much. Have a great week. If you're in Southern California, enjoy the sunshine because it's finally beautiful out there. All right, stay safe, wash your hands, and be safe. And yes, Christina, please post pictures of everything that you bake. So if you want to go to my Facebook page, if you want to go to my Instagram, tag Petit Astorias, and we'll kind of compare everything, okay? I want to see your bakes, so make sure you post those pictures. And I'll show show you guys my whipped cream because it just finished up. This actually wouldn't be too bad to have on our churros too. Okay, so if you guys see, you see how it's standing up all by itself? That's a stiff peak, okay? That's a stiff peak, all right? It kind of looks like Jimmy Neutron. If you're, you know, if you grew up watching Nickelodeon, Jimmy Neutron, he has a funny little hairdo on top. It looks like Jimmy Neutron, okay? That's a stiff peak. Awesome. Post your pictures and we will see you next week, okay? All right, take care, you guys.